Welcome to Why Such a Fuss, an exciting new channel dedicated to help individuals and businesses to learn more about data protection in a way that is easy and engaging. I'm Christina from CVG Solutions, and I am a fully qualified data protection professional. I am passionate about educating, empowering, and enabling businesses to thrive. Remember to like and subscribe to this channel and help us to spread the word. Data protection is there for a reason. It protects you, your family, loved ones, customers, employees from coming to harm through the use of personal data. So make sure you click subscribe. Now, get ready to embark on a journey of growth and knowledge as we dive into the world of data protection. Decided to revamp Why Such a Fuss, and we are securing a new interesting list of guests to bring you. So while we're doing that, we're posting our latest webinar on the ICO latest fine of 18,000 on the charity Birthlink. And we're also going to revisit some of the most interesting episodes that we have published so far in this season. So looking forward to seeing you again soon in the new year with a brand new season. You want?
This is being recorded, so other people, if you've got to duck out too soon or something happens, then by all means, please do come back and see the recording. Or if you know of colleagues who have had to miss today, do let them know that it's happening. So we've got 48 people in here. We'll just give it a few minutes for people to join us and then we'll get going. Use the chat, say hello. I need to know that you're there and I need to know that you're listening.
Can you hear us? Can you see us?
Hear us? All right, we've got Catherine Shopflin and Rachel Maguire. Love you guys. Hello. Can hear and see you both. Fantastic.
Okay, they can hear us both. Good.
Amazing. All right. Also, use the Q&A. If you've got any questions already in advance, go for it. If you've ever had any form of records management question that you ever want to ask me, as in, why did you enter into this career, Emily? The answer is, I've no idea. But you have the opportunity to ask me and Christina any questions. Data protection, GDPR, ICO, how much we like them.
Yes.
First person to ask why John Edwards was looking at my profile on LinkedIn.
Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out, yeah. We haven't got any questions yet. All right, we've got 61 people in here. Let's get this going and the show on the road. I'll take it over to you, Christina.
All right, okay, wow. Okay, well, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm Christina from CVG Solutions. I am a data protection consultant. So I work primarily with small and medium organizations, and we do anything from the usual consultancy to offering DPO as a service, the subject access request as a service, and also training. And Emily has kindly invited me here today to talk about one of the latest data breaches, but I'm not going to spoil it. Over for you, Emily.
For those of you who don't know who I am, my name's Emily Overton. I'm also known as Records Management Girl or RM Girl. My latest escapade is working jointly with Christina at CVG Solutions, because I've done the high flying career and now I just want to be a doer, don't I, Christina? Yes. I just want to, spread the word about records management and data protection and actually get stuff done. So if you're ever looking for a consultant and you want help, there is multitude of different packages that you can hire us because we're awesome.
We are.
Just saying.
Look at us.
Look at us. Christina, you're going to give us an overview of what we were going to talk about today, and then I was going to chime in.
Yes. So we wanted to just, sort of talk about the latest fine that the ICO has issued to a charity. The charity is called Birthlink. They're based in Scotland. And what the charity specializes in is in what they call post-adoption support and advice. So these are for people that have been affected by adoption themselves, or whether they are, the birth parents or relatives of people that have been adopted. And what they do is that they bring them together. Okay, so they look at records and try and put them together, the family. But what has happened is that the Birthlink has destroyed an enormous amount of records back in 2021. So, and that's the reason why they received this fine, because of poor record management. And so basically what they did, they decided that they could destroy what they call linked records to create more space in their filing cabinets. And so, and linked records are basically files of cases where people have been reunited, basically. And these includes things that are, like handwritten letters from parents, photographs, copies of birth certificates. So really personal data, and obviously, personal in terms of, attachment, emotional as well. And so they decided that this could be destroyed. And but only those that were replaceable. That was the initial instructions, if you want. But because of their poor record keeping, is actually they destroyed loads and loads of records, even those the one that could not be replaced. So they've gone forever. And what happened was that later on in 2023, they had an inspection by the care inspector. And that's how this came out. And this is how the board of Birthlink became aware of these irreplaceable items that they've been destroyed. And so they reported themselves to the ICO. And that's following that, then the ICO obviously did an investigation and then fined them 18,000. So this is a massive breach. It will have, ripple effect on, a huge impact to those impacted, because it wasn't just the fact that they lost the record, it's the fact that they couldn't identify who the data subjects impacted were, so they couldn't even communicate with them. So you got almost like a double yammer, so to speak. They have since then implemented or brought on board data protection officer. But, what this incident shows is not just the lack of record management, but it's also the lack of training and awareness within the charity. But it also goes to show that charities are not immune to the law. So they need to, put up with, come on board with that. And a lot of charities, to be honest, I'm struggling to think of a charity that does not have, a huge amount of personal data. And actually, if I might be as brave as to say, they all of them have special category data. I can't think of a charity that does not. Perhaps animal charities, but if they are to do with humans, then they will have, special category of one form or another. And so all charities, large or small, should actually start looking at their data protection and really, become serious about this. Because earlier on in the year, we had another fine to the YMCA of 7,000, I think it was. So again, which is another charity. So that goes to show the charity are very much on the radar of the ICO. but let's explore more the records management side of things, because really without records management, you can't really do data protection very well, in my opinion. So, Emily, enlighten us.
Well, so it's 20 years this year that I've been doing records management.
Wow.
Like how insane that is. It's 20 years next month. And so I've been shouting from the hilltops since 2005 about how important records management is. And the way that I look at it is you cannot do data protection without doing records management. So the three fundamental key things that a lot of people have heard me chirping on about is you need to know what you've got, why you've got it, and how long you need to keep it for. And it's that very last part that really truly, as someone said in the comments, is that I find it astounding that a charity involved in this kind of work would even conceive of doing this. Personal history for adoptees is hugely important. That was said by Emma, and I completely understand and could not agree anymore. And it's so sad that someone would actually do this kind of thing, because anyone who's worked in councils knows how difficult it is to identify all of your records. But there's one set of records that I remember that nobody would actually consider getting rid of, and it's adoption records. Like, everybody looks at the adoption records and they're like, look away, don't look at us, you're not going to get us to delete anything, how could you possibly even do it? And they're in contact with the council about this kind of thing, and obviously involved with the care inspectorate who reported it. So the concept that they wouldn't know how long to keep the records for, now I don't know if anybody knows, but it used to be I can't remember the actual year that it changed, but it went up from 75 to 100 years for retention. And so unless these people were from, 1921, which I think was before Birthlink ever existed, there's no way possibly that this could actually be ready for any form of destruction, because it's the life of the person. So it's easy to add a retention period to that by using their date of birth, because with any sort of record, most people struggle to know where to pin the retention on. It's called the trigger action. So that's where where the retention triggers from. And it's that all important part of a retention period that people forget about, because they put on their retention schedule, 8 years or 10 years or 100 years. But where from? That retention has to kick start at some point. So where is that retention piece coming from? And so you can have anything from date of birth plus however many years, date of death, but you have to be able to have that data to hang on to it. And there's no way that they couldn't have had that data. So my mind is what I would actually love to sit down with Birthlink and go and basically it's like, so come on, explain it to me, because I don't get it. I really don't get it.
Now, I would like to sit down with the people impacted. I know that they're struggling to find out who they are, but to really understand the emotional impact that this has caused to them, because it's already a delicate situation. You have people that are trying to look for their lost families. They've been adopted. Some are old, and therefore their parents might have died, but they might have siblings, and all of the data has disappeared. Letters that their parents have left, their birth parents have left for them, and it's just the emotional impact is just huge in my mind. I would be so angry. I think these individuals have every right to then take additional claims against the charity, and from a data protection perspective, this is hugely appalling. But as well as
I
record
mean,
management. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll go and sit down with Birthlink. You can go and sit down with the people affected, because if I sat down with the people affected, I'd just be in bits. I'd cry my little heart out along with them. So I'm not the right person to go and sit down with people affected, because sort of like, I have to use Does the Dog Die website in order to know whether I can watch a film or not, because I am such an emotional person. I cry when I'm angry, I cry when I'm sad, I cry when I'm happy. So unless you just want me in bits, Christina, don't send me to the people affected.
All right, fine, I'll do it.
You can do it. I'll go and rattle some chains. In fact, actually, if Birthlink ever watch this webinar, I'm going to offer a personal offer of giving them an hour free of charge of my time to actually review their records management with them, and say, come on now, let's not do this again. So Birthlink, if you're out there, free of charge, records management girl, I'll come and sit down with you and look at your records. No judgment, let's just get it sorted so it doesn't happen again, because that's how important adoption is.
And we actually have Emma on the chat that actually says, even without data protection, there is a whole range of other legislation which would be applicable. Absolutely. The Children Act provision, Section 1, the welfare of the child should be paramount. Absolutely, Emma, you are absolutely correct.
Emma, you are on fire today. Like,
I know she is.
In the comments. I don't suppose you work in adoptions by any chance? Oh, you're an adopter. That makes more sense. I got you. I was just beginning to think that, hang on a minute, we've got someone here that knows a lot about this. That's really important. So you can imagine. In fact, I feel like I could invite you in onto this live. I don't know if it's actually possible. You might be sat there in your pajamas. Just going back to about the fine, because I don't know whether you noticed, Christina, about how many files were actually destroyed.
Yes, 4,800, I think, something like that. So a huge amount, yes.
But what baffles me the most is, what would they do? So this was 2021. What was their first action after the pandemic?
Why would they not, scanned and put on filing system? Why were they still on paper?
Yeah. That baffles me, because in 2021, short of like eating like cereal out of a packet and wearing my pajama bottoms, I'm not entirely sure what made people go back to the office when it was actually possible to be in the office and go, do you know what? Let's just get rid of all them records. Did they took all the bags in the bin or something?
I think it was something like 40 bags of paper that they destroyed. That's a lot of time. Was they all sat over a shredder? Honestly, I don't get it. Anyways, no judgment. It doesn't go to the level of thinking. You have the option for me to come and sit down with you, and we'll sort it out. But going on to the ICO. Hello, friends. Yeah. Is there any ICO people in the chat? If there are, please look away now.
Look away now. Look away. I am less than impressed with the ICO, and I have been for a while. I posted on my LinkedIn the other day about the time that I cosplayed as Liz Denham. If you're interested in what I look like, I thought it was pretty convincing. I don't know about you, because you can definitely really see it's her.
Yeah.
It's the pink shirt. That's what it is.
I love the glasses.
I'm less than impressed with the ICO, because I think Scott is in the chat, and he's being very, very quiet if he's here. But he will remember that I have tried to speak to the ICO about records management being a problem for many, many years. I've offered for free to work for the ICO to I will let you use and abuse my knowledge and my expertise just to get records management out there, because, like I say, I don't think you can do data protection. Can people without records management? Can people in the chat state whether they feel that they are doing records management in their organisation, and genuinely say they know how long they need to keep their records for? Because I certainly haven't been told by the ICO how to manage my records properly, because one of the things that strikes me is we do actually have legislation in Scotland for records management. The legislation actually requires it. So I believe it's like 15 points that are required, but it's only for the councils for them to do, and that's nothing to do with the ICO. They aren't responsible for that. It's the National Archives in Scotland that are actually responsible for it. But in the UK, there is no up-to-date records management law or legislation. And I actually thought when I retire, that's the thing that I might start doing. I might start going and doing some lobbying. But my lobbying depends on whether it's reforming government, because if not, I'm not going anywhere near them. It's like, you stinky. But yeah, is when I retire, look to do some form of lobbying for records management legislation within England and Wales, because the only legislation we have is the Local Governments Act and the Local Government Records Act, and they're all from the 70s and the 60s. So I'm missing some of the messages if you can keep up with them, Christina.
Yes, I'm keeping up. So quite a few people are saying that they are doing records management, probably not right or not to the degree there needs to be. So if you need any support on records management, think of Emily. She's be more than happy to support you. And then sadly, there wasn't a requirement for local authorities to retain records for locked after children beyond their 21st birthday until the Access to the Records Act 1990. Even worse, the Act didn't apply for records created before it came into force. Wow. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that, Jane. And then Catherine says, following the CALGG recommendation to keep care experience adopted records for 150 years, 125 years best practice, do you anticipate these will be implemented? And if so, do you foresee more fine as a result, since the retentions aren't in legislation yet, but seems it may be considered? I mean, I don't know, to be honest, because I like to say yes, Catherine, but the current ICO, is not keen on fines. They're very
useless.
They're very sporadic. We are, this year we've only seen 2 charities, as far as I can remember, unless I'm mistaken, with the fine. But again, the fine are very low; they're not quite high. So I love to say yes, because I think we need that. We need for the regulator to regulate and to enforce. Whether it will happen, I don't know. Especially with the changes coming with the Data Use and Access Act bringing in, where the John Ed will be the chairman, will not, rather than the CEO of the commission. It might actually weaken.
I must have to say, Claire Johnson is in the chat, and yes. I bow to her knowledge with regards to Scotland, as I'm more England and Wales records management than anything. I can do Scottish law, but I would be teaming up with Claire if there was an opportunity that came across my way. And she mentions about the fact that the Public Records Scotland Act 2011, or known as PRSA, includes those providing contracted out services too. But the question there is, Birthlink contracted out to this kind of thing, or is it private charity in there? But saying a good marker of good practice for those not directly covered by legislation, I completely agree, is that if you are in England and Wales, I would be looking towards Scotland legislation to actually deem whether it's in, what I could actually follow with some sort of grip onto something to say, yes, this is the right thing to do.
Yes.
The other part of that is that with Freedom of Information Act and Freedom of Information Scotland Act, there is the Code of Practice for Records Management. So it's Section 46 in the England and Wales version, and Section 61 in the Scottish version, that we do have some form of guidance. And believe it or not, the ICO is meant to be responsible for that. Are they?
Yeah. Yeah.
There is no sort of like the records management in England and Wales specifically. There is no form of constructed advice, because Section 46 is that a code of practice. It's not a piece of legislation per se, because Freedom of Information Act actually just says refer to this code of practice for guidance, but there's no structure around it. So I don't believe that England and Wales has enough to actually go on. So if anybody is working within England and Wales, wants to look at some form of advice or guidance, I definitely look towards Scotland's PRSA.
Yes, and there are some interesting comments, Emily, in terms of the retention period with regards to, sometimes there isn't a legislation to go by to determine the retention, and therefore you go down the route of, a business need. But obviously that as a justification is quite weak in that sense, or it can be challenged. So I would always advise my client, if that's what they want to choose, is to really document that justification really concrete. Really why do you need to keep it for that period, and really justify it as strong as you can. But wherever possible, look at other legislation that can give you that timeline, can give you that guidance and best practice. There is also something else that Megan says, which I agree, and says, when neither TNA or ICO are enforcing legislation, it's tough to make enforcement in your own org on a small scale. Absolutely, yeah. Megan.
But and it's the same for bringing data protection in. If we're not getting fines locally and they're too busy looking across the board, stick to home territory. Start fining places like. And the thing that bothers me the most, I know that Birthlink was a terrible thing that they did, but why a charity? There's so many other opportunities that they could go for. And someone mentioned quite earlier on in the chat about the fact that they were surprised that actually for the first time this is about retention under retention rather than over retention. There are so many organisations that are out there that have been keeping records far too long. And John Edwards says he doesn't believe in fining public sector organisations because it's just public sector money just changing hands. It doesn't actually impact anybody but the end user. And I understand that. But the same goes for charity. We've got plenty of private sector organisations that are doing the wrong thing, that are here on on home territory, that could technically be fined. All they have to do is scrape the surface. But why this and why now? They haven't done any form of marketing about good records management or anything like that. Yes, they've got a couple of pages on their website, but so bloody what? Why this charity? Why now? And what was the marketing strategy for doing this? Is that why he was looking at my LinkedIn profile, because he's seeing if I responded to the fact that this fine was happening? Why this? Why now? Sorry, I interrupted, Christina.
No, all I wanted to say is, as a business or even a charity, obviously a fine, it will hit your cash flow, your P&L, etc. But the other thing that we got to remember is that if you, as an organization, don't implement and adopt data protection as well as records management to underpin it, then and something goes wrong, it's not just the fine that you should worry about. In fact, you shouldn't worry about the fine. What you should worry about is the reputational damage that could cause you, and also claims from the individuals impacted. And also, why not simply do it? Because it's the right thing to do. It's the ethical thing to do to develop trust with your clients, with your subscribers, with your employees, etc., etc. But actually, data protection, in my opinion, gives you that, almost like a record of, a recognition or a distinction from another competitors. So it's almost like part of your USP. So that you should be shouting from the top roof to market yourself, to demonstrate that actually you take it seriously, not because it's the law, but it's because it's the right thing to do. And again, when something goes wrong, it's not just, from a business perspective, forget about the individual, looking from a business perspective, it is your reputation that gets damaged and your credibility. And some big organizations like Marks and Spencer, for example, they bounce back, but small businesses do not.
Yeah.
And that could actually cause your business to then, close down. And that would be a total shame, just because, you couldn't be bothered to pay, a few thousand to become compliant. Because once you've got it, then it's about maintaining it. So the big effort, it's putting in the first place.
That people don't bring in people like ourselves, Christina, until something's happened, and we're now firefighting against what's actually happened. Whereas if you had an ethical approach to why you do records management or data protection, then you would actually be setting yourself up for the good. I say this quite a bit, but you can build a business on sand, but all it's going to take is one set of waves to knock it down. Whereas if you work with a consultant to do a concrete base, you can build your business with lots of turrets and everybody's happy, and it won't get washed away. So if anybody's interested in that, by all means do reach out to us. The other thing I was going to say about retention and knowing what your retention periods are, because people are saying a lot of this relies on limitation and things like that, is that yes, the Limitations Act, it is a huge piece of legislation. It's the biggest legislation that has the amount of retention periods within it, and a lot of them are quite woolly, I have to say. They don't it's like some of them are from the point at which the person knew. Finger in the air. Best quote of the day, Emily. You can't do data protection without records management. Thank you very much. It's if you need help with your retention schedule. So just so you're aware, I work with filers keepers. They own the retentions for around the world, and for the most part they're working with large private sector organizations to make sure their global retention periods are available, whereas I actually work with them, and I work with smaller businesses and medium enterprises and local on the ground in England and Wales and Scotland, to do retention schedules for organizations. And instead of approaching them, if you approach me, I can actually get you it cheaper. So if you are wanting a retention schedule, then I can get your retention schedule, and it will have all of the legislation that you ever need to know.
Yeah, there is an interesting comment from Shannon that says, worse than not hiring consultants, organizations are paying for records management professionals as permanent staff, but not fully utilizing them or supporting them to implement change. Absolutely.
I never got listened to when I was a permanent member of staff. It was only when I became a consultant that people actually started listening to me properly, or they were listening to my LinkedIn because I was busy harping on about it and not getting paid for it. I highly empathise. I do want to say is that there was a mention about the National Archives regional staff and things like that. This is no way in a blast at the National Archives. They do sterling work, but they are underfunded and not supported for what they do, and they have had to cut back on teams because the budget's not been available anymore, so that help out there hasn't been available. So if any of the TNA staff are listening, this is nothing about them. This is solely about the lack of support that they have received that has meant that they've not been able to help in certain areas as well. So they aren't able to do certain things such as handhold organisations as much as they would like because they haven't had the support. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that across before TNA take offence, because I love you guys.
But going back to what I can't remember the name now. But yeah, so for some reasons, someone who is internal does not have the gravitas or the clout to actually get the top leadership to listen. Because also you have that sort of, the status, the hierarchy playing, part in it. While instead as a consultant, being an external coming in, that we're not subject to the hierarchy. And so we can tap into the top layers and we can actually be more honest, do you know what I mean, with them, because the hierarchy doesn't have any effect on us. So I think that it's the advantage of bringing in the consultant, at least to get that change movement from the top, because the change needs to come from the top, and it needs to be driven from the top. So that's my 2 penny worth of my thoughts.
Yeah, about the records manager not being supported, I have to say, when I did work for the NHS, my team, I love my team. I reported into the information governance manager, who reported into business assurance, and the business assurance director, whenever I rocked up at his door and was knocking on it, it was like, "What money do you want now?" And I was on the right committees and on the right groups, and I think there's something there potentially, Christina, that we need to look at is support training or advice and guidance on how to get your point across in a records management and data protection to senior managers, to senior management buy-in and all those kind of things, and how you get that. If you think that this would be a useful like half a day training that people would be up for, to find out how to present yourself and to get your point across so that you can be supported better as a records manager or whoever working in your organization, then do give us a shout, because we can do a public course where we can have multiple different companies on the same course. It's working out. I think my problem with being records management is that I just never shut up about it. I don't care about what people think in terms of if I rub people up the wrong way when I have an opinion on records management, because I've yet to be told that I'm wrong. I openly ask people to challenge me on this, is that if you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, because I'd love to take that up as a conversation. And I yet to have anyone challenge me on it.
There is a comment from Megan who says, I'd like to see records management integrating more into information security principles. I agree with that, Megan. And actually, that brings me into just triggered an idea in my head. Actually, one of the things that perhaps we could do, Emily, is to create a records management training for data protection officers, because I think that might help, the data protection audience with that. Because, I don't come from a records management background, and yet I'm doing a data protection officer role for some of my clients, and I'm sure some of the people that we know that are doing data protection officer roles, they don't necessarily have that records management background, and I wonder whether you could spread the love in that way. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, I'm open to it. So I could do with some feedback in the chat about these potential courses as to what you think. If you don't think it's going to work, tell us it's not going to work.
Yeah.
What we're looking to do is keep it at a low cost, so that so it's open to people even if their employers aren't going to fund it. And we do it at dates and times that are suitable, where you potentially don't have to take leave in order to be involved. So if you could feedback in the chat. The first one was about almost like confidence and getting your point across from senior management buy-in to standing up for your role as records management. And the second one was, what do we think about records management for data protection officers? So I'll give you a few seconds to kind of get some words going in the chat about it, because I really would appreciate any feedback. And we've got 73 people in here, so that's a good straw poll.
Yeah.
Oh, we've got someone who would be interested in these. That's amazing. The other thing I wanted to say is that someone was saying about the ICO not being consistent with their message, and and the way that I have demonstrated how the ICO works is, imagine like a Las Vegas slot machine where you pull the handle, and sometimes you get lemons, sometimes you get cherries, and sometimes you get a mix of both. That is in a capsule what it is to get advice from the ICO. So sometimes you get cherries, sometimes you get lemons, and sometimes it's well, was that really useful? Kind of. So yeah, I don't think that they do the job. And this isn't, again, it's not a blast on the members of staff. The direct members of staff. I get some very upset ICO staff members going, "Oh, you're picking on us," and it's like, no, I'm picking on the governance of it all. We've even just seen is that one of the ICO members of staff, like the directors, has gone over to TikTok, and it just kind of like, when are we going to get somebody who's going to stick around and make a change?
Yeah, but actually, there's an interesting message from Rachel. If you can get advice from the ICO at all, I have been fobbed off so badly, I no longer bother. Absolutely. And actually what they recently done, they've removed the phone line. You can only chat with them through the chat box.
One thing about that though is you get a written down message. So you have evidence, you have a record of what they said. Because I don't know if anyone knew this, but they actually got rid of in their retention schedule, which I reviewed and blasted across on a blog some years ago, that they got rid of their advice guidance every 2 years. And I genuinely couldn't believe that they would do this to organisations, because they might give advice on something that directly impacts a business, and then that business would then maybe get, in like 5-6 years time, get contact from the ICO. It says, well, you told us to do it. Well, we don't have any record that we told you to do it. How do we know that you did it? And it's like, well, I don't have a record of you giving me advice, and you've destroyed that advice. So now with the web chat, you're able to keep it. And I have to say, is it this Thursday it's going live? There's a lot the talk about the large scale. Or is that next week?
I think it's this week. Yes. This
week, if you subscribe to Christina's newsletter on LinkedIn, I've written a blog post about what is large-scale personal data, because I had a cherries chat with a web chat on a web chat with the ICO, and I got really excited about it. So there's a really exciting blog post coming this Thursday that you really want to read, because it was about what is large-scale personal data, and I'm very proud of the conversation I had. But going back to this particular incident, what can we look at to make change here? So we can obviously do these courses, but is it enough? We've got someone saying a lot of small businesses don't have a specific role of record controller. This is usually covered by the MD or another member of staff. Training on how to understand what level of control is required and how to demonstrate it in its simplest form. Types of documents, policies, procedures, bridging the gap. Yeah. Yes. Well, I don't know if anybody knows, but I do a records manager as a service. So if you need a records manager or a record controller that needs advice, you can pay for my time per month, and I'm able to give records management advice and actually be that person for you in a small business capacity. I feel like this has been littered with loads of adverts, but I think it's important to get our message out there. Is come see us, speak to us. We don't charge every 2 minutes.
We don't bite.
Well, I might bite if you ask. But on the whole is that we're not as intimidating. I might be working with a very strong Italian.
Who's that? That's not me.
And I might be RM girl, but approach me. If you see me at an event, say hello. I love seeing people. I love talking to people. I think organisation DP training has to include records management as a minimum to make sure it's a thing, point to your standards or your schedules. So this is the kind of thing that we would look to do for a data protection officer records management training. So potentially something that we should be looking at. There's a couple of people that have... we haven't had any questions on the Q&A. We've been following the chat quite nicely. But does anybody have any questions before we start to wrap up for the session?
I've expanded the RM aspect of IT training. A slide on where should I put things. Okay. All right, Catherine, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also about that, where should I put things, is a really interesting question as to whether you've got a structure or a file classification that's actually easy to follow, or is it still 25 levels deep with Bob's stuff and nobody knows who Bob is? Has people saving things in 2 different places? Has someone created their own little area just to keep so they don't have to collaborate? Have we got silos of information? And I think this is key, is to actually identify the weaknesses.
Yes.
Hey, we're starting with which platform, never mind folder structure. I'm sorry, I got a bit excited. Sorry, Catherine. But yeah, is that where are we looking to store information? You need to provide the capability in the first place. And if you're not doing that, you can't expect somebody to do records management. So yeah. I think we have got to our point with this, is that, if we wrap up what we've talked about, if you want to just give a quick synopsis, Christina, or you want me to do it, let me know.
You do it. So I'm just going to put in the chat the link to my LinkedIn. If anybody wants to subscribe to if you want to connect with me, you're more than welcome. So Emily, if you want to do the same, I'd love to connect with all of you if we're not already collected. And also if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, which Emily has already explained, there is an interesting article coming out. I can't remember if it's this week or next week. I can't remember when I scheduled it for.
But every Thursday we've been writing blogs.
Yeah.
That are really important, especially for small businesses. And please do stay in contact with us. Let us know what's going on. I love a bit of gossip.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of talk about the fact is, Birthlink destroyed around 4,800 personal records, including vital documents such as letters and photographs, which are deemed irreplaceable by the ICO and also by us too. We don't understand why what went down in 2021, and it'd be really interesting to find out more. Christina's happy to sit down with people who are affected, and I will sit down with Birthlink just so that we can oversee it all. So if anybody knows any contacts, do send them our way. But
if anybody knows who the DPO is of Birthlink, please, put us in touch. I think, records management would be helpful for them.
So poor data management, the charity had put my teeth back in. The charity had inadequate policies and procedures for records management and lacked knowledge of their data protection responsibilities. They've brought on a data protection officer, and this incident wasn't reported until 2 years after the destruction took place. The original fine was 45,000, which was reduced to 18,000. The ICO apparently imposed the fine to deter other organisations from making similar mistakes and to promote compliance with data protection law, but I just think they did it because they could, with no actual concept of what it meant. And there are many other organisations that could have been fined before now for it. And the ICO needs to get better at promoting their records management guidance and what records management actually means for an organisation, not just about data protection law. Because it in itself is important. Birthlink obviously have issued a public apology, and they've said it's unacceptable that such an incident occurred, and I think that's quite understated. There are improvements that have been made. Birthlink's implemented several measures, including digitally recording and storing physical records. And apparently they've initiated staff training, but I wonder who with, because it's not with us. If anybody has any questions, you can follow us on LinkedIn, sign up for either our newsletters, but more importantly, Christina's newsletter, because I'm writing for her, and that's where you'll find the data protection related stuff, whereas mine is mostly just about records management.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for
quick summary of it all is Emily and Christina are unimpressed, both with the ICO and Birthlink. But we love you guys, and we will speak to you all soon. We have got another one that I'm just about to schedule about Jaguar Land Rover and the impact on small businesses. We're looking to do it next Tuesday, so keep an eye out for that. We'll be letting our newsletters know, so don't delay, sign up today. Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
Bye.